Okay, so it's recording. So this is definitely off the cuff for sure. But man, I'm thankful for you jumping on. Like I said before the stream. I think it's really important to have conversations like this. So guys, welcome to Anime Relatable, where we like to take our favorite anime and our shows and relate them to the Christian story. And I'm back with the interviews. Like I'm trying to get back into them. It's been a little bit, but I'm excited for who I have on right now. Like this man, at least to me, is an OG in the Christian anime realm right now, and I'm excited to have him on. Reformed nerd, yo, let the people know like yo who you are, and yeah, I'm excited for you to for you to be here, bro.
What's up, man? It's interesting. So you said that. Sorry, before I get going. So you used to
No,
do a lot more interviews, and you kind of stopped for a little bit and started bringing them back.
yeah, so I when I first started, so I have a with friends a completely different like channel. We do like a podcast and stuff, and then when I started Anime Relatable, I'm like, oh snap, like how can I like incorporate like sort of an interview type style? And also this is a little bit inspired from Ruslan too. I'm like, yo, how can I bring like incorporate his style a little bit into this Christian anime space? And so I have friends that are like manga artists and stuff, and so I started interviewing them just to get to know their story and like how their story points to like the Christian story because they're like Christian artists too. And then I started interviewing other like anime YouTubers. So there's another YouTuber called Christian Anime Podcast. He has like a virtual sort of like a VTuber type set. But I started interviewing him. We become like friends over time, and then like over along the way, I've been interviewing people, and I took a break because I'm like, okay, like I love to do this, right? But then there's a point where I'm like, okay, I also need to like kind of focus on content where I can bring out
Mm.
these themes that I see. So I started uploading like different videos and whatnot. And now I'm in also work and things like that makes things like hectic. So I'm in ministry. I will tell you what ministry I'm in at like when we get done recording and stuff like that. But it makes life hectic. So
That's dope. That's
uh,
dope.
I stopped doing interviews for a little bit, but then like I'm starting to wanting to definitely get back into the swing of doing interviews because I think other people have like a lot of different things to offer, right? And I think I want to expose like at least the growing audience here to other people, right? I think it's worth it. I think you guys like have a bunch of different wisdom that I necessarily don't have, right? And I think coming at this like type this niche that YouTube doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah,
know
yeah.
how to put us in. I think it's worth exposing you guys to to the people that listen here and whatnot. So I definitely want to like we're in a team, we're in this together, right? So I'm
Oh
definitely
yeah,
wanting to
yeah.
like give you guys like more of a platform, even though like I'm not big at all. I'm just like yo, like let me just get you guys in front of people's faces because like yo, you guys are also bringing some great stuff to the kingdom. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I've I've been on and off on YouTube for several years. This I've been doing Reform Nerd for like a couple of years where I actually started like, you know what, let me actually dedicate some time to this and see if I could make something happen. And by something I just
Mhm.
mean trying to interact with people and really being able to communicate a message and being able to interact with other people that are like-minded and maybe are not like-minded, and we can, still talk about whatever content I'm putting out, which is completely fine. I mean, I to be honest, sometimes I get more haters than I do Christians that actually like participate and come in. Now, with that said, like I mean, like for most creative people, we do a lot of stuff. Like I draw. So I did like a drawing channel for a little bit. But the thing is with drawing, especially if you're not great like me, like I'm
Mm.
like not even decent, I would consider. But that took a long time. Right. And then
Mhm.
I'm also interested in business and entrepreneurship, real estate, that type of stuff. So then I started a channel like that. And I actually started doing like interviews, and I did quite a few.
Mhm.
But then, and I'm sure you noticed, it can take a lot of time to plan it
Mm.
out, figure out schedules, seeing if you can make it happen. And now you're also
Mhm.
relying on other people,
Mm.
right, for
Yeah.
that content.
Yeah.
So that went for a little bit. I'm like, you know what, I can't, because at that time I think I had my first child. So then ultimately, right, you always get that itch, right? So you always want to come back, and this is where Reform Nerd, where I started with Reform Nerd, and the saving grace for me when it comes to this content is that we're called to spread the word of God, right?
Hmm.
So it's never for me, and it never feels like a waste of time. And when I'm having those conversations with my wife about, setting aside studio time or office time to be able to dedicate to this, it's like, well, we're trying to further the kingdom, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a different conversation. Right. So for me, oftentimes with maybe some of the other channels, I felt like, man, this is time that I'm taking away from family. This is time that I'm taking away from my kids. Whereas like it just in my heart it wasn't justified, but for this it's very different, right? The only
Yeah.
motive that we have here is really trying to reach as many people for God as possible. And
Hmm.
then you start thinking about like, well, what kind of content do you want to create? Do you want to be like a Ruslan? Do you just want to get out there and
Hmm.
preach and share that? And
Hmm.
for me, where I spend my lot of my leisure time and not is Christian content and just overall getting to know God more and more, and anime, right? Anime has been a
Hmm.
big part of my life since I was a child. So I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? Let me see if I can marry the two, and maybe I'll find some other people like me that might enjoy this content, because I have a few friends, well, quite a few friends, and we all enjoy anime, and we're all uh, people that follow God. And in our conversations, when we're talking about whatever anime, Naruto,
Hmm.
Dragon Ball Z, Attack on Titan, you name it, the biblical themes always come out, and we're doing this banter and this back and forth between the two.
Hmm.
So I started this channel really hoping that I would find other people like you out there.
Oh wow, yo, that's amazing. Yo, I love that. I think it's always something amazing, especially when you have like other like Christian friends that are into anime that you can just have the natural conversations and then pull out, the theme that you see. And it's like, oh snap, you thought you think like this too? I didn't know that. So that's really cool, man. So I wanna pull back the layers a little bit and kind of see like, hey, what's your story, right? Like, you're here, right? You have one child, maybe more, maybe a little
two
bit,
two
right? Two,
two
two, two,
kids.
two, two, two kids. Okay. That's amazing. I'm also married, no kids yet, soon enough. But I want to know, man, like, yo, when did you start following Jesus? Like, what's your background? What's your upbringing? Like, yeah, what brought you to like, a relationship with God overall?
Yeah, so my answer may be a little bit unconventional. um for a lot of people, I think that a lot of us, or a lot of people, can kind of pinpoint that come to Jesus moment per se, or like,
Hmm.
this is the time that I gave myself to Christ in a way. And I mean,
Hmm.
biblically speaking, do we see some of that? Maybe, but that's a conversation for another time. But for me,
Hmm.
I come from a Christian household. So both my parents are Christians. So I grew up Christian, going to church, doing all that. Uh, for a long time, it was just going through the motions, right? Like, I'm just going to church because my parents are making me. What I can tell you is that there's two distinct memories that come into my mind when I think about my salvation. And one was when I was around 15 years old. And at 15 years old or so, my church always had youth groups, like youth meetings on Fridays. And my mom would always like, oh, you gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go. And I'm like, nah, I'd rather stay at home, watch some Toonami, like catch up on my anime, etc. And one day I'm just sitting in the kitchen, about to get into my shows. It's getting late. It's like 7. Anime's about to start in a bit. And I just, this voice was just like, why don't you just try it out? Like, why don't you just go?
Mm.
And I went. I went that day. Everyone, I mean, I knew the youth that was within my church, but I never really built any sort of relationship with any of them, right?
For sure.
So I went to the youth group. People were friendly. I'm like, okay, this wasn't too bad. So I guess I can come back next week, right?
Uh,
So that's where things kind of started for me at that time. We had a youth pastor that was really digging into the word, asking questions that you would normally not ask in church, and I found that super interesting.
Hmm.
And that was a journey for quite a few years, probably till I was like till I went to college, right?
Okay.
And at that point I was already like following Christ, getting involved. A lot of times in college, my faith was never challenged to the point where like, oh, like I don't believe in this, but
Hmm.
definitely the drawing of the world, the partyings, that sort of thing, that creeped in a little bit in my life. So I always kid with people that I had like a once I turned 21, I had like a 6 month clubbing phase, and then I sat down and I'm like, dude, this is a waste of money. I'm not meeting any quality people. Above that,
Mm,
I'm like grieving the Holy Spirit. Like, this is not worth it. So it lasted 6 months and then I was done. Right. But
yeah.
in there, I clearly remember there was a youth service. We called it Glow. I wish I remember the acronym at the time. But in that service, I knew that I wasn't faithfully living my life with all this clubbing stuff that I was doing, and God just again just the Holy Spirit convicted me, and it was just one of those moments where there was a moment of prayer. I was, bawling, crying, and just
Mm.
like asking God for forgiveness. And ever since then, like the world has never like been able to get a hold of me. You know what I mean? Like I just been full on for Christ ever since. But that's more or less my background. I know it's probably not as exciting as a lot of other people's like background stories, if you will.
Mm.
But that's for me what Christianity has been growing up until this point. I mean, I'm 32 at this time, so.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that, bro. I think honestly, I see a lot of similarities with my story as well, where like I like and oftentimes like when I share my testimony and things like I like talk about like the time period of when I like started like placing faith in Jesus, or I started actually believing Jesus, or where like God started just like pulling me towards himself. Um but I definitely am like, I don't necessarily know, because like my a little bit of my story is that I gave my like I guess I gave a confession of faith at my dad's funeral, right? Like, so my dad passed when I was like younger, right? And so I like there was this gospel call. The church wasn't biblical at all. It was definitely background church background was kind of crazy, but there was this gospel call at the funeral and was like, oh snap! I guess I want to just make this confession of faith, because in reality, I just wanted to see my dad again, right? And so I did that. I'm like, okay, bet, cool. But then after that, I'm just like, nothing's changed. I'm just gonna live my life and just do my thing, right? And then when I got to college, I started, really experiencing this pull and like this call from God, especially because my mom, whole different story, but my mom's a part of. Have you ever heard of the group called Black Hebrew Israelites? My mom is an
Mm.
Israelite, so from that, I think God used that a little bit, even though it sucks. It still sucks that he's still in it. Um, where he used that to sort of start making me ask questions, right, and start to have conversations with my mom, and started getting into apologetics, and like, and even during then, where I was, I guess I could say God was like having the gospel be communicated through via YouTube, or I'm reading my Bible and stuff. I wasn't really like placing faith in Jesus. And then there was just one moment, in college, I just was like, I need Jesus, right? I need to cling to him. And then that's when I like that gospel made sense to me and I understood it. And then like from then on, like I started walking with Jesus. I'm 20. I'm going to be 27 now, so it's been like maybe close to like 6 years since I've been walking with Jesus. So it's kind of crazy that like I, I think with most people they can't necessarily pinpoint the exact time. There's some people with like they have like the really dramatic stories. I'm just like, do they all have to be dramatic? But I'm glad there's like normal people that are just like, yeah, I was following Jesus around this time, but there's not really a specific moment. Um, so I love that. Um, bro, when did you start? When did you start watching anime? So I think I was hearing you around like when you were younger, like your mom's trying to force you to go to church, and like you were just like, yeah, I just want to stay home and watch Toonami. Like when was it that like you started watching anime? What was your like your first anime that you ever experienced like when you were younger?
Yeah, so for me, I've been watching anime since I was, I want to say 6, 7. I started with Dragon Ball. to be
Okay.
honest. And it was back in Dominican Republic. So I'm from Dominican Republic, and my family and we got here. I was about 9 years old when that happened, but I've been watching anime since I was 9, so 20 plus years at this time. So Dragon Ball, um, another one that I really still remember from my childhood, and I've watched it a couple of times ever since. Is Knights of the Zodiac, Saint Seiya. A
Okay.
lot of people are not
Yeah.
familiar because in the
Yeah.
US, because
uh,
Ronin Warriors was kind of like a similar take from the perspective of, like, they both have like armors and things like that. So from
hmm
that perspective, they're very similar. So when Saint Seiya came into the US, it didn't hit because they already had
hmm
something similar.
Yeah.
But that one is, I mean, that, to be honest, the anime that like my parents let me watch when I was a kid, like I wouldn't let my kids watch. It's like there was so much blood and like people cutting ears off and all that.
hmm
But
Yeah.
from that ignorance, I was able to experience a lot of different animes that were pretty cool. So
For sure. Yeah. No, I think a lot of the anime,
Pokemon,
the anime,
obviously,
Pokemon, yeah, for sure. A lot of the anime now, it's like, dang, like, yeah, I think I'm gonna shield you from this. Like, you can watch like Kotoro Lives Alone. Like, that's okay. That's okay. That Netflix anime for you to watch, right? Um, Bro, what I'm curious. So you started walking with Jesus, in like seriously in college, right? And then you've been watching anime for like a good amount of years since you were 9. When did you see that connection? Right, like when did you see that connection from like with anime? Like I see it like on your channel, from watching your videos. Like there's a lot of like Dragon Ball Z content, which I love. I'm like, this clear as day, right? But when did you start seeing that connection? Where like, wow, anime like points to this hope of the gospel, like, or it can be used to point
yeah.
to the hope of the gospel.
Yeah, so to be transparent, the reason why you see a lot more Dragon Ball Z content than others is that out of all animes, I've watched it the most because, as you remember, Toonami would like repeat.
hmm
You would get up to like the Namek, and then it would start all over.
hmm
So I have a lot of things that I remember that I can pull from, where I don't have to like necessarily go watch this entire anime and then create content on it. So from that
hmm
perspective, it's a lot easier for me, especially with the limited time that I have today. So just
Yeah.
to let your viewers know on that end. But what that's an interesting question, to be honest, because I think if we think about it, the theme of good and evil, right, and good triumphing over evil is something that we just instinctively get. You know what I
hmm
mean? Just in
hmm
general. Um, I don't know if I could give you like a specific date and time, but definitely probably once I really started like really studying and digging into the Bible, we're talking about probably in my 20s is when,
Okay.
because once you start really digging into the word, you start connecting all the other
hmm
dots in your life. Oh, well, this is why
hmm
people think this way, right? This is why we have selfishness. This is why we are egotistic at
hmm
times. And as you start thinking through all that, you start seeing those themes in the content that you're watching, in anime
hmm
and otherwise. Now, I think that when I started just having more of those conversations with other people was when I started really developing some friendships where my friends would also be watching anime, right? And then at that point, and to be honest, it's not like, oh, we're sitting down and we're gonna, all right, guys, let's have a Bible study on this
uh-huh.
one episode of Pokemon and let's see how it relates to the Bible. But it's just like as you're thinking about all of these things, maybe you make a reference to David or
hmm
Samson, and Goliath or whomever, looking at like the little guy and the big guy. And then you start having those contrast conversations, or you remember one class that you were thinking about, and you start talking
hmm
about, and you reference that in your anime, and then that
Yeah.
dives into an entire theological discussion,
hmm
about good and evil. So that's more, I think, once I started studying my word more, and some of my friends that were more into anime that were also Christians, that's when like those conversations started happening.
Yeah. That's cool. I think Yeah, with a lot of different shows, right? I think honestly it's I've heard it there's this term that you know, because I when I started seeing this these themes of like, you know, different shonen like, you know, anime heroes, right? Or main characters of like, oh, like these and especially as I started reading the Bible more, like just like you, it's like, oh, like I'm seeing how these stories intersect with the Christian story. And there's this one article in the Gospel Coalition that called Jesus the hero par excellence. It makes me sound real fancy, but it's like Jesus is the prototypical hero. Like every single story, every single, you know, whatever you name it, like comic book, you know, movie, whatever. It's like if there is a hero that's like trying to fight and rescue people and, you know, defeat good and evil, like everything points back to Jesus. And I was like, oh snap. And so I think the only way that yeah, to kind of see that, it's like, oh, like you kind of have to really dig deep in the Bible and like really see like, okay, like how is this the case, right? How is Jesus the hero that like is coming to save us and save the day and defeat good or defeat evil? And um so
And
I
most of
love
the time, that's what you see in animes, right?
hmm
For the most part. Although I feel like maybe One Piece does it a little bit different, although fairly similar because you always have that one fight, but you have so many other characters that are,
hmm
playing their role within the thing where there are other most animes like Naruto, Dragon Ball, where they're just like, all right, let's just wait for Goku or Naruto to get their power up, and then
yeah.
everything will
Yeah,
be
no,
resolved.
yeah, no. One Piece is an interesting show. I have not taken a crack at trying to make a video on it yet, mainly because I haven't like I'm literally still I'm still stuck on like the ghost like the ghost arc right now. I'm like nowhere near caught up, but I definitely see like oh snap, I can see some parallels for sure. Um, bro, I wanna talk about um because I know I feel like within the anitube space, it's very interesting where like I think there's different people where it's like you have people that are just reactors, like they are like you know getting excited about you know a new episode of the anime. They'll you know they'll watch it with their community and they'll just like there won't be any sort of value being given. It's more like oh yeah this is awesome type. Um, then you have the other side where people are like very heavy on anime where it's like this is their life like they break down like every single thing which I think you know to a certain extent I think it's fine right and then you have some people that like do like the you know video analysis like they critique the different sides of anime but it may not be from a spiritual perspective um what has been your experience being like doing this like this type of channel, right? Because you're bringing in anime where it's like tons of people like anime, especially now. But then you're bringing in spiritual Christian themes and bridging them together. What has been your experience doing that, and what has been the response from people uh, when you do these things?
Yeah, so by and large, there's a lot of people that so it's like a lot of things where if you enjoy something, you may not necessarily be prompted to comment on it, but if you don't like something, you're definitely gonna say something about it, right?
Hmm
So and I'm not saying that this is all of the comments that I get, but I do get quite a bit of few people, which I didn't anticipate, that were getting very upset at me that I was referencing their anime to Jesus,
Mm,
and a lot of the commentary behind it is like, well, it sourced from X, Y, and Z. This is meant to be more Buddhist than anything else. How dare you, right? Take
mm,
this material and then relate it to Christ. Now, at the same time, I do get Christians that are very upset that I'm taking something that's quote unquote worldly, if you will,
yeah.
and relating that to Christ. And it's weird. I get very weirded out by the Christian piece the most because it's like, I don't know if you've ever had to preach, but when you're preaching, you're always being relatable and you're relating things that people are experiencing today, right,
hmm
to the word of God so they can have a better context. Because nobody, I don't know about you, but most of the people that I know are not farming, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
with the parable of the farmer, like that's not really gonna hit the same. You can explain it, but if you can put it in a
Mm,
context where they can see it at the workplace, right, relating it to a manager, then now they're like, okay, I'm connecting that, and I'm also going back to the Bible. Now I understand what's going on in this passage. Now that's
yeah.
what I'm doing. I'm taking a context of a specific anime, and then I'm saying, hey, by the way, what's happening here with this character also happened in the Bible in this way, or the
Hmm.
Bible explains this thing that's happening here in this manner. Have you ever thought about that? So like my hope with my
Mm,
videos, especially the ones that I make them when it's more like anime based, is just to get people to realize, hey, like this one thing that you like about this anime or that's here in this anime, it's also here in the Bible. Maybe you may want to check it out, you know?
yeah. But that's good. I love that, right? Because we're on the same page, right? I speaking to the speaking to the non-Christian piece, right? I think when I started, and I've seen this like on various different like Christian anime pages that they kind of do the same thing or try to do the same thing, where like you have people that are really diehard fans of something, right? You'll have like, I don't know, like you'll have a diehard like Naruto fan, and they'll be like, and you'll try to make the connection and reference to this like, you can't do that because like it's like representing Japanese symbolism. And just like I'm like, what? Like, what are we talking about? And I think, granted, right? Like, cool, yes, but that doesn't mean that I can't like take this and pull it out and relate it to
No.
like how I see the world or what I'm going through or how I'm feeling. Right? I think for a lot of people, they kind of miss like, okay, the reason why like let's take for example Dragon Ball Z, and you can even comment on this too. I think the reason why a lot of people love Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z is because it was relatable to them in their everyday context, not because it was, granted, it may have been it was most probably inspired by a Japanese philosophy or religion or Shintoism or whatever, but it's like most people watching anime or watching these animes don't relate to that context, so they take it
Yeah.
and relate it to their own current context. Like like a lot of people, at least I'm familiar with, watch Dragon Ball Z that relates to Goku, not because he's like a representation of a of this sort of like Japanese story, but he's relatable as like how he works hard and how he likes to defend people and fight for people, and it's like they relate that to themselves. But yet, I don't think people are like getting on them or getting on those people for taking that, you know what I mean, or relating that to themselves, which I find it really weird when like people are so like, you can't do this because like you can't take a Christian story or a non-Christian story related to Christianity. Like I'm just like, but why? Like what's the reasoning? And like, yeah, I don't. I feel like it's really weird. Um,
No, I think as you're speaking, I think like for me, one of the if I want to, I don't necessarily want to call it an epiphany per se, but like when Toriyama, right?
mm,
When that happened, I wanted to create a video, and I don't know if you ended up watching it, but it was a live where I took, hey, this could have been the intent of this author
mm,
with these stories that he told in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z,
mm,
and then I related it to scripture. And the thing is that we all need to understand is that at the end of the day, as artists, anyone that is putting a content out there, they're trying to relate to you a certain idea, right?
mm,
They're trying to relate a concept, right? And
mm,
going back to Dragon Ball Z, we talked about Goku, that you have to persevere. If you continue going and pushing yourself, maybe there is that opportunity for you to be able to persevere and reach your goal. Or you look at a character like Vegeta, right? Some of the commentary in there is like, hey, everyone is worthy of redemption if you give them a
yeah,
chance.
yeah, yeah.
You know, and these are just core concepts that I truly believe that the author is trying to convey to you through this story,
Mm,
right? So the concept can very well be related to concepts within Christianity, right? Because every author is going to have an intent for you to, either be inspired or, feel a certain way about what's happening within their anime. And ultimately, what are you doing? You're relating that to your life,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's a great way to look at it. I don't I never understood, or I probably like also didn't anticipate, or maybe I did, because like Christianity, for I feel like for people, especially like anime fans, like really extreme ones for sure, they are very like maybe militant about their anime, and like being dedicated to the source material, and like making sure that everything is on point, and that if you're talking about it, you're talking about it correctly. Like I was never in this like position, like um or never in this way of like wanting to argue like everything about anime, but there are people that are like that, right? And I wonder what's going on beneath that, right? Because I think it's one thing to be a fan of something and then talk about it, engage in discussion, but it's one thing to be like very, very nasty and angry and militant about protecting this material as if they created it, which is like kind of also like a whole different subject for sure. But I want to talk about the Christian response though, because I have noticed, right? Just with anything, right? With I think with any, if we're talking about anime, if we're talking about comic books, if we're talking about different stories like Harry Potter, or like Chronicles of Narnia, or Lord of the Rings, like things that are made by Christian authors, there's still like this sort of like response where it's like, why are you taking these worldly elements, like why are you taking magic, why are you like doing all these things and trying to like communicate this is not okay, this is not of God, like what, why do you think that is?
It's very weird. It is very odd, and to be honest, I think that a lot of those people just haven't thought through their worldview,
Mm,
because anything that is based on fantasy is going to have some type of magical world, or they're gonna have I mean, superpowers are just magic, we're just calling it
mhm.
something different. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And and there's definitely, and it's not the same, right? The What
Mhm,
happens in the Bible is not the same, because at least for you and I, we believe that to be true, what happened. But there
mhm.
are a lot of extra natural things that happen within the Bible. It's just in these other mediums, they don't necessarily attribute it to Jesus per se, but they're saying, hey, these people are able to do these overly supernatural things. Now, when it comes to Christians that either get upset, or I mean, I've seen channels dedicated literally to just demonizing anime. And look,
Mm,
like any content that's out there, whether it is books, movies, TV shows, human or animated, you're gonna have your good content and you're gonna have your bad content, right? You're gonna
for
have
sure,
content
yeah.
that you should definitely avoid, sexual morality, things like that. But
Mhm,
even somebody, like, for example, if they're struggling with gluttony, there are probably shows or different
mhm,
scenes that you may not want to see, where, like, I don't know, Goku is stuffing his face, right? For most of
mhm,
us it's funny, but somebody struggling with some type of disorder or something, they may see that and may trigger them to want to go eat or
mhm,
overindulge, etc. Because I
yeah.
mean, I think of, have you ever seen Bucky the Grappler?
Bucky the Gut, mm-mm.
Yeah, or even what's that other anime with the ghoul, what is it called? Something Tokyo Ghoul.
Oh, Tokyo Ghoul, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'll give you a perfect example from both of these. So from Bucky the Grappler, there was one scene where this dude literally, before a fight, what he ended up doing was like he shook a bottle of Coca Cola. He took out the fizz, and then he drank the entire thing, and then he ate a banana. And the reason, and the author, what he was trying to convey is that he wanted that sugar so he
Okay,
could get that energy before the fight, right?
yeah.
So me as a kid watching, I'm like, oh snap, I'm gonna, Coca-Cola is good. So I like started
Mhm,
chugging Coke because, like, Bucky's like this, buff dude that can fight and all that. But even with like Tokyo Ghoul, one of the things that they do, and sorry, did you say you were familiar or no?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So you know that they drink like the coffee with like
Uh-huh,
the extra
yeah.
stuff to quench, their thirst.
Mhm.
And just watching that for a while, I'm like extra enjoying my coffee because I'm like, yo, like, So all that to say is that anime can influence. Like, people shouldn't just look at it, oh, the sexual content. That's all you should avoid. Like, you really gotta look within yourself, understand who you are and your proclivities to sin, and
Mhm,
then not just in anime but in general cater what you watch so that you're not influenced into into sinning. Now that is
Mm-hmm.
what I would say is the healthy approach to
For sure,
content
yeah.
in general, right? But I think that we a lot of Christians just want lists and they want
Mm-hmm.
rules and
Mm-hmm.
like this no, this no, this no, and this no. So when they see, anime and they're like, oh, they don't understand it because a lot of these channels they're looking at Goku doing like the what do you call this the spirit bomb, and they're like, oh, well, he's telling everybody to worship him, and then all of a sudden, like that's demonizing, right? Like
Yeah,
that's of the devil.
yeah.
He's calling them to worship. They should be worshiping God, and you're like you're not even understanding the context of which this story is being told. So I
Yeah.
think that it's a lot of confusion, a lot of laziness where they don't actually want to get to know the material, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's just a lot of fear overall,
Yeah.
to be
Well,
honest.
yeah, no, that's good, man. I think I remember like maybe I forget, maybe it was like 4 or 5, maybe 6 months ago. Um, or maybe it was like a year at this point because I've been a year doing this. And I remember there was this girl on TikTok, like, and one of the reasons why, like, I have my problems with TikTok. I think that the Christian, spit like space on there and like them, I think it's fine to a certain extent, right? But then I saw a girl that went viral, right, because she was like anime is demonic, and she was like listing like
Mm.
all these different like anime that really she wasn't familiar with because like there were she quoted like Death Note, and she quoted like some other anime that had like some that was referencing um one of the false idols
Mm.
in the Bible, and that was the name given for it. And she was like, yo, this is the reason why anime is demonic, and you might be possessed by a demon if like you are watching these anime. And I'm sitting there like, okay, either you were real lazy and you just saw like Ryuk the demon and Death Note, and you were just like, yep, this
Mm.
anime is demonic, therefore you shouldn't watch it. If you do watch it, you probably shouldn't. If you do watch anime, then you might be possessed by a demon or you might be influenced. I'm just like, I feel like if you were just to take the step to do a little bit of thinking and like actually like see these characters, see the shows, and like, granted, like, yo, no, like, I don't. If someone feels like they're being influenced by demons, don't watch anime. Like, I feel like that's like the appropriate response, right? But
Yeah.
I think
I
some
mean,
people
even
like,
Death Note, it's like
mm-hmm,
it's a story of Babel. It's a story of Babel, right?
mm-hmm,
The story of Babel, they wanted to be like God. So we're gonna build this and this, this monument. So we're gonna be like God. And
mm-hmm,
what's the whole commentary on the main character, right? Is that he felt as if he started off being righteous, right? Only
mm-hmm,
killing the bad people. But
mm-hmm,
eventually he was like, no, I'm God. I get to
mm-hmm,
do what only God does. And then we
mm-hmm.
see his ultimate ending. So, I mean, that person clearly didn't watch the entire show or didn't even bother to analyze the themes that were being shown.
Yeah, bro. See, if it would have just took her like maybe 10 seconds to read the synopsis and just be like, oh, okay, this is an anime about worshiping demons. It's actually a person who wants to be God of his own life, right? And he inevitably fails, but he tries to do all he can to be able to be God of the world and God of his own life. And I'm just like, sometimes like we're just like, I feel like I don't want to call us lazy, but I'm like intellectually, I'm just like, yo,
Yeah.
let's think about this, right? And I think you know, I think often about Acts 17 with Paul and Areopagus, and he's in a room full of idols, right? And he sees like all these Greek statues like in things, and they're like names of gods and whatnot, and then they have like an unknown god, right? Which is like for anyone that they missed, they were just like unknown god here, we're worshiping him, and then Paul's like, oh
A God
snap,
that you don't
bet.
know, here he is.
Yeah, like it's crazy. I'm just like literally like you like me like Christian Pod Son like Christ Comics like Geek Devotions like I'm literally like naming a bunch of different like channels that I know, and I'm like, we're literally taking this, right, something that like, yeah, it could be an idol, right, it could be someone could definitely idolize it, someone can definitely like view this as like as giving them life and being sufficient, but
There
yet
is
we're
a religion
taking
of
it.
Goku.
Is that really? I did not know that. Okay, That blows my mind. All right.
Yeah.
But
I saw like a forum on it once. Yeah.
oh, yo, that's so interesting. I'm gonna look that up later. But yeah, I'm like, yo, like we're literally like taking these shows and we're taking the themes out, we're pulling them out to be like, hey, this characters or these characters or these shows that you love so much, actually, this is the true person that points to that can actually give you hope, right? And I feel like it's yeah, you got have more thoughts, but you
By the way,
get
all those channels that you mentioned, you definitely gotta send them my way. I gotta check them
I,
out.
I got you. I got you. They're really great people. I'm part of a Discord with a whole bunch of people that are like trying to use anime like to further God's kingdom, right? And I think,
Hmm.
man, it's like when we think about the Great Commission, like I'm all about it. And I'm like, Jesus calls us to be salt. He calls us to be light. He calls us to use our time, talent, and treasures, like Ruslan says, to extend the kingdom and make it better and like expose darkness. I'm just like, what is like I feel like it hurts sometimes when you do have brothers and sisters that just automatically look at something and just like, oh, this is showing fan service. Oh, it's like causing me to stumble. Oh, it's like showing demons or magic or powers. And it's just like, you shouldn't be partaking in this. But it's like, there
Yeah.
are a bunch of people that are in this
Mhm.
that they need to come out of it if they are
Yeah.
like, influenced by it or whatever. And it's just like, who's going to do it? Like, because
Mhm.
like if we're taking these shows, if we're taking characters and we're trying to relate them to like the Christian story, I don't think I mean, they could, like, by the power of the Holy Spirit, God can do whatever he wants, right? But, like, what if he wants to use these characters to expose, like, and use people that use the characters, Christian people, to expose them to the gospel message? It's just like, we can't do that if we're just looking our nose down at them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, man. I'll give you a few examples. So that the questions from genuine people were the things that I did not expect. Like I've had people
Okay.
reach out to me in comments, "Hey bro, like I'm struggling with this. Should I really watch this anime? What is your response? What do you think? Can you make a
Mm,
video on this?" I had, early on one guy that, he wrote a bunch of stuff, but in there he mentioned that he was having a tough time because his grandma passed away.
mm,
And I took that as an opportunity to create a video. I think it was like that following week, talking about David, right? And how he grieves his son. And I related that to One Piece and Luffy,
mm,
So dealing with grief was the overall theme of that video. And I linked it to him. And he said that it was a blessing to him. So there's definitely people, whether they watch anime or not, that are searching for answers, that are searching, and that they're asking themselves different questions, and whether you yourself like anime or not, that doesn't mean that the medium itself is demonic. And
mm.
you hit the nail on the head. Like, this is a medium where we could reach other people. Like, for a long time, Christians were against social media in general, but guess what? A lot of more people are spending a lot of time on social media. So if we are
Yeah, yeah.
called to bring light and the eyeballs are in these social media platforms, then we should be the light in those platforms and bringing Christ, right?
Mm,
So where the eyeballs are, where people are putting their attention, we should be there offering the alternative, right?
yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people that just get caught up in what they don't understand, and they don't even bother, like that person, to even look into it.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good, man. I think what's fascinating is I looked at a statistic maybe a few months ago. And I'm trying to keep up to date on it, but like Gen Z, right? Like Gen Z, like 60% of Gen Z or 69% of Gen Z, like they are consuming anime. Like, and I'm part of Gen Z. That I'm like the older half of Gen Z, so I'm a little bit old.
Yeah.
But like these people are like they love anime, like. And like, there's even like I read an article where like Gen Z people like they're finding they're finding their own spirituality in anime. I'm just like, yo, what kind of influence can anime have to try to make like that's influence people to be more spiritual? Then I'm like, dang, like how can we impact them like in order
Yeah.
like to let them see like, oh, bet like what you're actually looking for is in Christ. And I think, bro,
Amen.
it's such a significant time right now where like I'm excited and like that like anime is popping off, but yeah, I'm excited that more people are starting anime channels, right? Like I'm viewing more people that are like Christians and they're just like, yo, I want to start this channel because or start this like blog post or whatever because I see the value that anime can bring, but ultimately how I can see how I can point people to Jesus. So, bro,
Yep.
like what out of all the, I mean, there's a lot of negative, right? And you mentioned one example, but what is the, like, from your channel, like, and from you starting it, like, what has been the good of you, or from you starting and doing videos, and maybe critiquing anime, or showing how, like, certain characters or shows point to the Christian story. Like, what has been like the positive of that, right?
Yeah, I think the positive is when you find those one or two comments of, somebody encouraging you, like, "Oh man, I've been looking for a channel like this. Oh, I didn't know like there were even
Mm-hmm.
channels like this that existed." Like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, thank you for, bringing light to this one topic within this anime," or,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, these are the things that you," because I've done a few, should you watch anime, or should you not? And
Mm-hmm.
breaking that down, and like, oh man, this really helped me understand whether I should be watching this anime, or if I shouldn't be watching this anime. So for me, that is the best part of the content that I made specifically to anime, is being able to impact, people in a tangible way, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that you never really expect when you're starting,
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. I definitely can relate, man. Like, I love, especially when you're starting out, right? Because I think when you're small channels, for sure, like small channel vibes, it's like, oh, bet, like, I am trying to get things off the ground. Like, I might be barely getting views or whatever, but you just have that one person that's just like, yo, like, thank you for your video. Like, it's really like shown me, like, yo, this about the good of this anime, or like, oh, like, I'm a new Christian. Like, how can I navigate watching, this sort of show or whatever? And I love that. I think it really does show, like, that people are searching for answers, and it's just like, yeah, this may start out as like a passion of ours, or creative, like creative side project, whatever it may be, but it's like there are real people that actually do want
Hmm.
answers, and they want to figure out how to navigate their life. And I think that's significant, and I think that's amazing, as being like, you know the body of Christ, right? Especially in the online space, where it's like we can help each other, even if it's in a virtual space. You know what I mean? Um,
Bro, like, just imagine, right, that eventually there's enough of us where you literally have Christian anime channels, right, popping off,
bro.
right, getting all these views. Like, imagine what that will do, in the sense of, it's going to attract people to be like, yo, why are so many eyeballs on this thing? Like, why are so many Christian anime channels popping off? Like, it
Hmm.
would create an interest for people to just like, yo, what is going on over there?
Hmm.
Like, that's wild for me to think about. And I've been thinking about that since you reached out to me, because I had seen a couple of channels, and some of the ones that I started following like early on, they
Hmm.
started and then they kind of stopped posting, and then they go off again. I mean, one thing that I'll say to you, man, is just that, remember that you're doing this for Christ first, man.
Hmm.
And just keep going, whether you get one view or whether you get 10, whether you get 1,000, 2,000. Just keep going, because eventually what will happen is that if you stay consistent, you'll get one, maybe two, three people that, I mean, I had, this one guy that has been with me, if you will, since the beginning. His name is Patrick. I see him all in the comments. I see him in the lives. We've connected,
Hmm.
off of YouTube, in chats, and chopping it up, and like, that's beautiful, dude. Like, that's awesome.
Hmm.
But I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, yo, like, is this worth it? Like, should I be dedicating
Hmm.
all this time? Should I stop? And something in me still today is just like, bro, like, it doesn't matter. Just keep going. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta have that 10-year vision of like, do you want to look at yourself or your channel 10 years ago and wish like, man, I should have just kept going? Like,
Yeah.
where would it be? You
Yeah.
know?
No, that's good, man. I co-sign that, like, that kind of that vision, right? Of like, oh, what would it look like if there are, like, more Christian anime channels popping up. I know, like, there's dudes like Mike Winger and Ruslan, and there are a few other people too that, like, they have the desire of seeing other Christian, like, YouTube channels popping up, right? Because they see, like, the vision of like, hey, this is going to pop off soon, right? And we want people, Christians here, influencing this space in order to point people to Jesus. And, like, I think when I heard that from them, especially Ruslan, because Ruslan's been taking off. Obviously I'm a fan because I have his like his gear and stuff. But it's like yo, when I heard that, I'm like, bet it feels like when you're like when you're in a sport, right? I used to run track and field. When you're like with a coach that really believes in you, it's like, oh, bet, like I'm ready to
Mm,
like run through a brick wall for this coach because like they believe in me so much. And I
yeah.
don't know Ruslan personally, so I don't know he can't really believe in me until I pop on his feet. But it's like it's like oh snap, like to see someone that has been doing this for a bit and they've been influencing the world, like influencing the culture where like they're engaged with like different people that you wouldn't think that Christians like could be have access to because like for a long
Mm,
time I felt like in the Christian space, I've been watching Christian YouTube, I guess, since I became a Christian. But like, it was always like Christian people interacting with Christian people, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
mm,
But you
yeah,
saw
yeah.
someone kind of go outside of the box and it's like, I want to reach these people and have conversations with these people. And I'm like, bro, that's different. And I think like in the same vein where it's like, yo, like if we can be that same way, like we're being innovative and like using something that most people wouldn't think twice about, I guess, in the Christian space, and like if we can amass like these like channels and people, and we see that people are circling around and be like, yo, there's something different about these guys. I think like that's a huge win for sure. So I'm excited, bro. I'm excited, just for what the future looks like. I definitely your words, I mean, you encouraging me for sure is like definitely keeping me going because like there are moments where I'm like, yo, like that's a lot of work, man.
Yep, I feel you. It is. It is. People don't know, but
Mhm. Like
because
I,
it's like the scripting,
mhm,
like especially for anime, it's like you gotta find the clips or you gotta find the images that you want to
mhm,
use. Like you're talking
mhm.
about one video, 5 minutes. You're talking about several hours worth of work.
Yeah, bro. It's crazy because it's like I literally I so there's a few like anime YouTubers that I follow that are like non-Christian, and like I see these people and I'm like, how are y'all doing this? And I'm just like, yo, their content is great. Like you have like the dang, I'm blanking, but there are like a few like really big anime YouTubers like that are just like kill it in the space, but like they could just drop anything where it's like, oh, bet I'm just gonna say like one word, and then like they get like 100,000. Just like, where is this coming from? Like, well, how are you doing this? But I think it does. I think it does attest to like, what are we really in this for, right? I like, what are we really doing? And yes, I think it's fun. I think I honestly I find joy in making videos. Like this has just been a budding thing for me over the past like 2 years of just like learning how to edit, learning how to do different things, learning different software and whatnot. But um I think it's like, are we keeping Christ the main thing? And I think for a while for me, I don't know if you felt this way, but I think with the YouTube channel and using and doing anime and talking about Christianity and Jesus, I'm like, dang, I don't want to call this like a ministry. Like I felt for the longest, I was like, yo, it's just a channel, it's just a hobby. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to, call this a ministry because I'm just doing this for fun or whatever. But I think the more I kept doing it and more that like that I like was really being questioned, I think, by God for sure, of like, yo, what are you really in this for? And I'm like, I can't help but be like, yo, I do want to like see Jesus glorified. I do want to see people come to know him through this medium. And now I'm like, I don't care if people call it a ministry now. Like I used to get so like, like cringe. Like I used to cringe at like, it's not a ministry. I'm just doing it for fun. But I'm like, the more that I think about it, and especially the more influence, like, once you get, honestly, I think once you get past that like 1K mark, it's like, yo, okay, what's, you can be in going into like higher territory for sure. But I'm like, I if I'm not keeping Christ as like the main thing in all of this, I'm like, honestly, what is this worth?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, yeah.
No, for me, when I first started, and I always have to remind myself because I can be very like serious and like let's look at theology, let's figure
Mm-hmm.
out what this means, what is the Trinity. Like I can really like I love that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, initially, when I started this channel, my vision was number one, trying to reach people outside of Christianity, right? But secondly, I wanted it to feel like me hanging out with my buddies, where we'll switch on and off from talking theology, talking about anime, intermixing the
Mm-hmm.
two, relating them to each other. Like that's what I wanted the overall feel to be. And to be honest, a lot of the times I gotta like remind myself of that. Because even if like, you know, I want to make like a more goofier video, you know,
Mhm.
than some of my other stuff, is like I find myself holding back. It's like, dude, it's fine. Like there's so many like YouTube channels out there that are just like straight up like serious, like,
Yeah.
you know, let's go to Sunday service. And we need more of just like listen, as Christians, we relax too. We joke around
Yep.
as well, you know, and
Yep.
but it's always like that mind mode that I gotta like switch off and be like, yo, it's okay to just chill and share something fun about something you enjoy and linking it to
Mhm.
Christ. Like that's okay too, you know.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think it's definitely good to note too. Like, yeah, we can take ourselves serious, like really serious sometimes, and I think it can be to our own detriment for sure. Um, bro, what I guess my last question would be like, yo, what's the hope like for you for the future of your channel? Like, what do you desire? What are some like dreams that you have? Um, yeah,
My hope is a very simple one: to be better today than I was yesterday,
I like that.
and to be able to meet and interact with fellow believers and people that are not believers. That is my ultimate goal. And you know, I'll share that with you because obviously, you know, we're both just starting and
Mhm.
trying to grow in this YouTube space. And man, sometimes like I'll look at a video, I'll drop it 10 views, and like that's it, you
Mm.
know, and then I'll drop another video and it's another like whatever, 5 views, 15 views. But then I have to remind myself that I mean, I'm getting more videos that are hitting over 500, 1,000 than I was when I started. So
For
clearly,
sure, yeah.
in some way, I'm improving. It's just that, you know, you get so caught up on that, man, that video just like for some reason. And the thing is, like, sometimes they can be good videos and the packaging is just not there, right?
Yeah,
For
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
reason, it just didn't hit. And then there
Mhm.
are other times where the packaging is great, but then, you know, your video, maybe you didn't put enough effort, you
For
know?
sure.
So for me, my hope is to not take myself seriously. And despite the downs, I hope to continue to grow, to continue to put in the time, and to ultimately glorify God and meet more people like you.
Wow. I like that. I like very, very, very simple, very, like yeah, focus on for sure, like getting better, like every day, like every video, but like definitely having fun, right? Meeting new people. I think I never really, I never really, you know, um, I just fully understood how YouTube can really like literally bring people together, right? I think there's like significance in like seeing people that are like essentially like on the same mission as you, right? I think especially like fellow Christians that like are wanting to just like expand the kingdom and glorify God and just make content and just like I think I've definitely found real joy for sure in meeting like people like you now, right? Like people like that I met over the course of the 2 years of doing this. I think there's something really special about it, and also just keeping it simple, right? And also like also in that definitely like meaning encouragement, definitely giving encouragement when needed and stuff. So, bro, I
Bro,
like that.
you know what the craziest thing is, man? The thing that shocks me the most is when I put a video that I literally like I thought about it that morning and I'm like, you know what,
Mhm.
let me just record this because I'm gonna forget it. And I record it, maybe I'll put a couple of images and like that's it. And for whatever reason, that video freaking hits. And I got these other videos that I'm like putting in, like I kid you not, like 2 hours worth of like, okay, let me script it out. Let me make sure that I got a catch at the beginning, that in the middle I'm
Mhm.
setting something up so I can hit it at the end. And then I put that out and I'm like, yo, this one's gonna hit. And it's just like dead. You know?
Yo, oh my, I relate so much, bro. Oh my goodness, bro. That's a lot to it's a lot to unpack. It's just crazy that like I don't know, man. I feel like it could be a mix of a lot of different things, right? I feel like it could be like YouTube or like it could be the audience. I mean, it could be packaging, it could be video, but it's like I'm like, if I'm putting in like hours, like if we're putting in hours of research and then we're like putting together a banger video, the script is crazy, the script is good, and then
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
like, eh, don't want to see it. But then you have this other thing over here, right? That's so simple. Like you said, like you effort minimal, it cracks. I'm like, how? what's happening here? You know what I mean? So
The
I think
question
I
is,
could.
what do we take from that? Like, what is the lesson? Because I'm still struggling. Like, I don't know. Like, should I just, just put less effort and just go in,
Mm,
pick something, say it, and see where it goes? Like, it's very tough to tell. I think like I'm so early on for me that I just don't know. So I just like
yeah,
try a little bit of everything and see where it
yeah.
goes.
I feel like what's crazy is that I I, I feel like I'm referencing him a lot, but my my reference for this or familiarity with this is definitely Ruslan, where like this man he's I think he scripts like an intro. That's
Oh
it. And
yeah,
then he
I gotta give it
record
to him. Like I'm not like a huge roots.
what I was saying, but that's okay.
Talking about
Um,
Ruslan for a little bit.
oh
You were
yeah,
saying how you could see like he can get on streams and he'll comment and have all this stuff off the cuff.
yeah, yeah. I can't do that. I definitely like in a like a streaming setting, like a podcast setting for sure. For sure, I could be like, oh, bet, like I could I have questions and we can just go back and forth because it's like I love conversations, so I love getting to
Mm.
know people. So um, I think that's fine. But definitely when you're by yourself and you're just talking to the screen, and if you don't have comments
Uh,
yet, and it's just like no one's commenting, it's like yo, what are we doing?
yeah, yeah.
But man, I'm grateful for you taking some time to talk to me, bro. I'm definitely excited for your channel and excited for what you would do, and also just excited that there's someone else that's in this, right? Because I think the YouTube journey can get pretty lonely for sure, and it can get
Yeah.
pretty like exhausting when you're doing it by yourself. And there's another dude that's on your channel. I don't know his name, but I
Oh
see
yeah,
him.
my boy Andrison.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
see
yeah,
him just
yeah,
like, oh, you got someone else in this with you. So I think that's
yeah, yeah.
amazing.
He
Um,
he just he just randomly he's like, hey man, do you want me to? Is there any way that I could help? Like he's a really good friend of mine. Like my wife and his wife are sisters, so we're pretty close.
okay.
He's over at my house all the time, and like you for the longest time, like I didn't want to do lives because it just felt so weird. Like I like vibing off of people. Like I work
Yeah.
better that way.
Mhm,
So I had no plans of doing anything live. Like I was just gonna record and and do my stuff.
mm,
And when he mentions like, well, like I started doing like one live here just to see because I think it was Mike Winger or somebody. He's just like, just try everything and see what works out. And I'm like, well, I'm
mm,
doing this if you want. Like I'm gonna plan on doing it every Monday until something happens. And he's like, yeah, I'll join you. And he lives pretty close to me, so he just comes on Mondays and we just chop it up. And every week we're like texting back and forth, figuring out, okay, what are we going to talk about this week? The good thing
mm,
about him, so I'm not so into like what's happening in culture. Like that's just not me. That's not what I'm interested in. But he
mhm.
is like he's a sneakerhead. He's listening to Ruslan all the time. That the last video with the Kanye stuff, that was him who brought it up. So
Uh-huh.
he adds like a different flavor and perspective to the whole thing. So I think that's why we play off pretty well off of each other.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely grateful that he was just like, hey man, I'm down for helping. So
Yo, that's amazing. I love
yeah.
that. I think it definitely a good like confidence boost and like kind of keeps you going because it's like, yeah, someone's
Yeah.
like physically like, I think, once you get big in YouTube, like people like start establishing teams and stuff and they start like
Yeah.
having people do different things. But I think like that's significant that there's someone that's like in
Teams,
it
me,
with you for
myself, and
sure.
I is my team.
listen, listen, like I always hear like it like
I
because I'm
wish.
yeah, bro. I do it. I do this too. I'm just like, yo, I ain't got the payroll
Yeah.
or
Got
patience
no
or
means
funds
for
for
that.
that. Yeah, nah, it's crazy. So when people establish teams, it's just like, yo, I don't know how y'all do this, but cool.
Yeah.
Man, where can people find you if they want to watch your content, they want to support you, like where can they find you at?
Yeah, so Reform Nerd in YouTube. That's where you'll find most of the content. I do have Reform Nerd on TikTok and Reform Nerd 7 on Instagram. So if you want to reach out, you hit me up on Instagram. So if any messages, like I'll see them on there. I know that YouTube doesn't really have like a messenger, like you can leave a comment, but on Instagram you can definitely find me there
Yeah,
and on
bro.
YouTube for sure.
It would be a game changer if YouTube did a messenger. But anyway,
Yeah.
but man, yo, thanks for being on. Every like your content and links to your content and everything will be down in like the description when this drops. But bro, I am thankful for you. And guys, go check out his content. Check out Not content. He is very gifted in what he does, and I think you guys like he deserves your support. So, guys, until next time, this is the Anime Relatable. We will check in later.